This episode is sponsored in part by VMware. Because let's face it, the past year hasn't been kind to our AWS bills or honestly any cloud bills. The pandemic had a bunch of impacts. It forced us to move workloads to the cloud sooner than we would have otherwise. We saw strange patterns such as user traffic drops off, but infrastructure spend doesn't. What do you do about it? Well, the Cloud Live 2021 virtual conference is your chance to connect with people wrestling with the same type of thing. Be they practitioners, vendors in the space, leaders of thought, and get some behind-the-scenes look into various ways different companies are handling this. Hosted by Cloud Health by VMware on May 20th, the Cloud Live 2021 conference will be 100% virtual and 100% free to attend. So you really have no excuses for missing out on this opportunity to deal with people who care about cloud bills. Visit cloudlive.com/Corey to learn more and save your virtual seat today. That's cloudlive.com/Corey, C-O-R-E-Y. Drop the E, we're all in trouble. My thanks to VMware for sponsoring this ridiculous episode. Good morning, AWS, and welcome to the AWS Morning Brief. Before we dive in, it would appear that I'm not the only person who has lost patience with AWS and its free tier, scaring the crap out of newcomers with a large bill. Forrest Brazil did a terrific blog post / newsletter on someone getting a surprise $200 bill and freaking out. Some student one day is going to receive a large surprise AWS bill on their test account because they misconfigured something, not realize that AWS is going to wipe the bill if you open a support ticket, and then do something profoundly tragic, as happened earlier this year with Robinhood. A 20-year-old took his own life last June, mistakenly believing that he'd lost nearly $750,000 in a risky bet. He wouldn't have, but it was tragic. Something like that is going to happen sooner or later with a AWS bill that someone doesn't realize will be wiped. And I really, really, really hope that AWS is able to fix things before it gets to that point, because otherwise, I don't ever want the AWS bill to be a life or death issue, because I'm sorry, it's just not that important. And now let's get on with the rest of the program. Amazon CloudWatch Synthetics supports cron expression for scheduling. Only 46 years after cron itself, along with its syntax, was invented. Good hustle, team. Amazon DevOps Guru, now generally available with additional capabilities, and they include a cost estimator, which takes several hours to figure out just how much this thing is going to cost you. Unfortunately, that estimator did not return a result before press time here, much like an actual DevOps person blowing off a deadline, not getting something in on time, and badly in need of being fired. Amazon VPC announces pricing change for VPC peering. This is a huge deal for me and the rest of the Duckbill group because this materially changes the economics of when to use VPC peering over Transit Gateway. You're not going to see me complain about a price cut to something that most customers don't really foresee as being expensive, though. It's a great thing. More like this, please. Well, okay. AWS announces a price reduction for Amazon Managed Service for Prometheus, or AMP. It turns out that when maybe it'd be cheaper to let the site fall over without telling anyone becomes a viable strategy, the service is priced far too high. Enjoy a whopping 84% price cut here. And the hits just keep on coming. Amazon CloudFront announces price cuts in India and Asia Pacific regions. Now, this might be good for you, but you won't know without waiting to see, because you're billed for CloudFront accesses based upon where the requester is. You can't really predict that in advance. Complexities and best practices for AWS Lambda logging. They tiptoe around talking about the incredible cost of CloudWatch logs unless you're careful to configure a bunch of stuff just right. Warming Amazon EC2 instances using AWS Lambda to improve application availability. Wow, I wish I could get away with writing posts that started from the premise of our auto-scaling sucks, so how about you fix it yourself with Lambda functions? I further wish I could get away with writing such a thing without once referencing last month's EC2 auto-scaling warm pools announcement, which is a first-party approach to solving this precise problem. New Amazon FinSpace simplifies data management and analytics for financial services. I'm not entirely clear who the target customer for this service is. That's okay, it's not me. The more worrisome thing, though, is that a quick straw poll of my financial services clients shows now that they're not sure who this is for either, because it's not solving problems that they experience today. While I do like the approach of targeting specific verticals, I'm not sure that they spoke to enough customers before starting to build this thing. This episode is sponsored in part by our friends at Chaos Search. You could run Elasticsearch or Elastic Cloud or OpenSearch, as they're calling it now, or a self-hosted Elk stack. But why? Chaos Search gives you the same API you've come to know and tolerate, along with unlimited data retention and no data movement. Just throw your data into S3 and proceed from there as you would expect. This is great for IT operations folks, for app performance monitoring, cybersecurity. If you're using Elasticsearch, consider not running Elasticsearch. They're also available now in the AWS Marketplace if you'd prefer not to go direct and have half of whatever you pay them count toward your EDP commitment. Discover what companies like HubSpot, Klarna, Equifax, Armor Security, and Blackboard already have. To learn more, visit chaossearch.io and tell them I sent you just so you can see them facepalm yet again. Introducing CloudFront functions. Run your code at the edge with low latency at any scale. Lambda at Edge has had its problems, so AWS did what they do best. Completely ignore those shortcomings, launch a new service that's got a whole other set of primitives, disclose that those hideously expensive Edge functions were in fact running within 13 AWS regions all along, but still took what felt like days to deploy, and then positions this whole mess as a net positive for customers. How JP Morgan Chase built a data mesh architecture to drive significant value to enhance their enterprise data platform. Amazon FinSpace makes 0 appearances in this article because JP Morgan Chase is here to conduct business, not be new service guinea pigs for Amazon. Securing Apache Kafka is easy and familiar with IAM access control for Amazon MSK. No, the hell it is not. Even without reading the article itself, I know that this headline is lying to my face because IAM and MSK and Kafka do not play well together, ever. Improving daemon services in Amazon ECS. Honestly, I'd prefer they improve the run this task once every 12 hours story. Getting ECS services on Fargate to not run consistently is an exercise in frustration the last time I attempted it. A thought leader best practice is to use code build for that instead. I am not kidding. Create a serverless pipeline to translate large documents with Amazon Translate. Have an overcomplicated architecture looping in additional services in order to make it easier for you to spend more money on an AWS service? Who would possibly mind that approach? How to deploy Spinnaker Keel on Amazon EKS. Kubernetes customization, spelled with a K, files, is so cutesy that I want to immediately tear it out of any environment to which I have access. How to monitor expirations of imported certificates in AWS Certificate Manager, ACM. You mean you couldn't just email me automatically that a cert was going to expire? Is the only logical response to that item. IAM makes it easier for you to manage permissions for AWS services accessing your resources. I think this makes it easier, but I need to drink about 3 cups of coffee in order to dive into something that is this technically deep and complex. So we'll see. And lastly, 4 tips to help you build a future in the AWS cloud. And 5th, when we make a lowball offer to acquire you, you'd best accept it. And that's what happened last week in AWS. I'm cloud economist Corey Quinn. This is the AWS Morning Brief. Make good choices.
This has been a Humble Pod production. Stay humble.